trains are unpredictable. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 6, verses 14 to 18. I'll read the Sanskrit of the last verse. There's a small purport on the first verse. So I'll read the Sanskrit of the last verse. So verse 14 says, O King Parikshit, when the gigantic body of Putana fell to the ground, it smashed all the trees within a limit of 12 miles. Appearing in a gigantic body, she was certainly extraordinary. The small purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, is because of the grievous hurt imposed upon her by Krishna's sucking her breast, Putana, while dying, not only left the room, but abandoned the village and fell down in the pasturing ground in her gigantic body. Next few verses don't have a purport, so I'll just read the translation. The Rakshashi's mouth was full of teeth, each resembling the front of a plow. Her nostrils were deep like mountain caves, and her breasts resembled big slabs of stone fallen from a hill. Her scattered hair was the color of copper. The sockets of her eyes appeared like deep blind wells. Her fearful thighs resembled the banks of a river. Her arms, legs, and feet seemed like big bridges, and her abdomen appeared like a dried up lake. The hearts, ears, and heads of the cowherd men and women were already shocked by the Rakshashi's screaming. And when they saw the fierce wonder of her body, they were even more frightened. And in the final verse, I'll read the Sanskrit and the translation and the purport. Sanskrit says, Balam cha tasya urasi kridantam akuto bhayam gopyas turnan samabhyetya jagrur jata sambramaha. Translation, without fear, the child Krishna was playing on the upper portion of Putana Rakshasi's breast. And when the gopis saw the child's wonderful activities, they immediately came forward with great jubilation and picked him up. And the purport by Srila Prabhupada, here is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Although the Rakshashi Putana could increase or decrease her bodily size by her mystic abilities and thus gain proportionate power, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is equally powerful in any transcendental form. Krishna is the real personality of Godhead because whether as a child or as a grown-up young man, he is the same person. He does not need to become powerful by meditation or any other external endeavor. Therefore, when the greatly powerful Putana expanded her body, Krishna remained the same small child and fearlessly played on the upper portion of her breast. Sada Ishvarya Purna, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always full in all potencies, regardless of whether he is present in this form or that. His potencies are always full. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. He can display all potencies under any circumstances. Jai. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai. Thank you all so much, dear devotees, for being here on this morning. Please bless me that I may speak something in line with Parampara, that I may speak something that is useful and beneficial to all of you. Thank you to all my seniors here. Adi Purush Prabhu, thank you so much. Jai Jagannath Prabhu. Jai. So let us speak a little bit about this pastime. So I haven't given class since last month, so I was kind of, hello. I haven't given class since last month, so I was kind of surprised that we were so quickly. I forgot how quickly this pastime comes in Srimad Bhagavatam. Right as baby Krishna is delivered, and the meeting between Vasudeva and Nanda Maharaj happened, Putana is coming. So basically the point is that Kamsa is not really waiting, right? He immediately is like, go get Krishna, right? Go kill the child, go kill all the children, actually, right? So for those of you who have been tuning in, or if you remember correctly, the context of what is happening right now is that Putana came to the village disguised, looking quite beautiful, actually, right? Does everyone remember this? Yes, she was looking really, really like gorgeous, and the descriptions are like her hair was garlanded in flowers, and she had attractive smile, and everyone was just kind of just like dazed by her in a good way. And I was listening to a couple of lectures about Putana pastime, just preparing for this, and I was hearing that the gopis were even thinking that she was Lakshmi Dev, that she had come to bless Braj. And so it's really interesting here. I think the first place I want to start off, there's a lot of themes and a lot of things to talk about here. But I think the first place I want to start off is just this juxtaposition, because right now what we're seeing is, you know, in verse 6, a few verses ago, we kind of got the description of how Putana came disguised. And then here in verses 16 to 17, we're seeing what she actually looks like, right? And it's quite the shocking, yeah, that's what she actually looks like. And there's baby Krishna playing on her breast. Jai. So it's really interesting because when we kind of look at this, we see a really, really, really important lesson here. Can anyone guess what the lesson is here? On one hand, you have Putana disguised as like this really beautiful, gorgeous. The gopis are entranced by her. The villagers are entranced by her. She's looking dazzling. And on the other hand, you have actually who she is, right? What's beneath on the surface that she's putting on. And that is, you know, hair like copper and gigantic arms like riverbanks and crazy sharp teeth like plows like this. So can anyone think what this might be?
Beauty is as beauty does.
Beauty is as beauty does. Thank you so much for Boo. Yes, beauty is as beauty does. What else?
Beauty is within, not without. Don't go by the external.
The magical, mystical voice from the altar is telling us that don't go by the externals, that beauty is within. Yes, these are all good things. Specifically, yes, Evan.
Sorry.
No, please.
I was gonna say it's kind of like Maya Devi. You know, you think that you're getting something beautiful, but then it ends up just. But
Yes. So yes, thank you. That was the point that I was going to bring up, that as we are entranced in Maya, New York is actually a really good place. You know, a lot of people talk about New York being so austere, because it is. But it's actually a really good place to practice this, right? There's a lot of glittering phantasmagoria. Srila Prabhupada loves this word, right? This just everything looks so pretty sometimes. And then you also get a really kind of slap in the face of like the reality, you know, of New York. And you see kind of the grossness of it. I won't go into so much detail because if you live here, you know what I'm talking about. But just like walking in the streets, right? Has anyone walked in the streets outside here in the East Village before the garbage trucks go by? Like 6 a.m., 5 a.m. Yeah, Jai Jagannath is always telling me about this. It's kind of like a wasteland. It's really, really gross. And so Maya is like this, actually, right? She is tricking us into thinking like, this is so beautiful, this is so wonderful, this is so gorgeous, this is glittering and beautiful. But actually beneath, there might be a really sinister intention, right? And so the intention of Putana was not only to kill Krishna, but to kill all these children, right? And she had a very resolute kind of intention. And this is really scary, actually, because when an intention becomes so resolute, we will do anything in our power to achieve this intention, right? When we're so convinced that what we're doing is right, then we'll do it. And Maya has a really good, what's the word I'm looking for? Propensity, right? It is described that the mindset behind Maya is that it is I and it is mine. Right? It is I and it is mine. So when I am, what's that word I'm looking for? aligning myself or pledging allegiance to something that is that I see as part of me. It can be a good thing, but it can also be a really scary thing. So we have to remember how Putana arrived, right? She arrived because Kamsa was sending her, and not just her, but so many other demons after that. Kamsa is sending to kill baby Krishna and like this, and harass the Vrajavasis. And so when the point I'm trying to make here is that when a intention is extremely resolute, you will find any type of justification to do it, right? Kamsa really thought that like this is what he needed to do to protect himself, right? And he was kind of lost in his own ego of protecting I and mine and me, right? And so he sent Putana like this. The last class I was giving, I was talking specifically, I'll go back to this Maya point because I wasn't quite done. I was going off into a tangent. But the last class I was giving, I was talking about, there was a verse about agriculture, and there was a verse about the farms and like this and the gopas. And so I was speaking, I won't get too much into that, but I was speaking about this point of how we've become so disconnected from reality, right? Like when you go to a Whole Foods, you buy something, it looks nice, it might be wrapped in plastic, it might have a cute little sticker on it, it might look great, right? But actually we don't know what the process is for that thing to arrive there. We're disconnected from the process. And this is kind of a like a very matter, gross example of Maya, but I think it's a quite nice example that we're seeing what we want to see, right? We're seeing what's on the surface. We're not actually seeing what's going on, right? And we're all entranced by this. Like we are, like I can say that for myself, like we're all entranced by this Maya, right? And so there are so many, just think of all the material objects in your life that probably have not the best backstory to them, right? Whether they be foods, whether they be goods, whether they be technologies that we're using, right? They might not have the best backstory to it. So this is going towards what our dear Champak said, right? Not paying attention to what's on the surface and actually going a bit deeper, right? So the external presentation might not really matter, actually, in a sense, because the intention of what's going on internally is much, much, much more important. So, the reason why we're seeing things on a superficial level. Does anyone know why we're seeing things on a superficial level?
Because we're superficial.
Thank you, Champak. Haribol. Yes, because we're superficial, because we're on the superficial level, right? We're on the level of the false ego. We're on the level of I and mine. And what's really interesting about I and mine and Maya is that when we're on that level, then that's how we're relating to other people, and that's how we're relating to other things, right? How Champak so nicely said, right? Why do we see things superficially? Because we're on that level. And so really, when I'm on that level of I and mine, I'm thinking, this is for my benefit, right? How is this going to help me? How is this going to help me get further? How is this going to fulfill my desires, right? How is this food stuff or this person or this etc., going to fulfill my sense enjoyment, right? And this is really dangerous because it's a way of seeing things that's quite exploitative, right? What am I going to get out of this thing, this person, this situation, right? What am I going to get? And so I then don't have any interest in what the intention is, right? Or what's actually in their heart, right? This is the opposite of Krishna consciousness, right? Krishna consciousness is I'm seeing that there's a divine spark of Krishna inside of every single living being, that everything in this material world can be used as paraphernalia to worship the divine. And this is the spiritual vision that we're all aiming for, that we're all yearning for. And so it's really interesting because it's a really good barometer, or it's a really good litmus test, actually, to check in on yourself, to see like, how am I doing in my devotional life, right? How am I doing in my devotional practices? it's a good litmus test to see, well, how am I relating to the world? How am I relating to other people? How am I treating them? How am I treating other people? What is my mindset? Am I trying to get something out of them, or am I trying to serve them? Right? And it's really nice. I was listening to a lecture by His Holiness Radhanath Swami about this pastime of Putana. And he was speaking specifically about how, I really like this point that he made, and I think it's a point that that us here at 7:15 a.m. Bhagavatam class sometimes need to hear. And he was mentioning that because we are devotees, that we think sometimes that these rules don't apply to us. That because we are trying to be devotees, or we think ourselves great devotees, that we think that these rules don't apply to us. And Srila Prabhupada always said that the biggest mistake of his disciples was not being afraid enough of Maya, right? And so Radhanath Maharaj was saying that he was speaking on what it really means to be a devotee, on what it really means to be a devotee. And he said, it means to go beyond superficialities and externals, to go deep so that our external efforts and knowledge and activities are an expression of something very genuine within our hearts, and to recognize that and appreciate that in others. I'll read that again. Radhanath Maharaj is saying that to be a devotee means to go beyond superficialities and externals, and to go very deep so that our external efforts and knowledge and activities are an expression of something very genuine within our hearts, and to recognize that and appreciate that in others. This is a really beautiful point, because he was speaking in this lecture I was listening to afterwards. He was saying that Srila Prabhupada was very expert in this. That Srila Prabhupada would see that even if a devotee was having a serious problem, or if he was, going through some turmoil or some chaos, but he saw that deep down in his heart, he had love for Krishna, that he was trying, that he was sincere. Srila Prabhupada would treat that devotee with the utmost kindness and respect and love and forgiveness. And that simultaneously, while this was happening, others, devotees or other people would criticize this person, right? Because on the outside, they were looking like they were, going through something or falling down or, doing something they're not supposed to do. And then on the other hand, Srila Prabhupada sometimes would see that devotees would be extolling or praising someone, but he could see in their heart, and he could see that, he would just kind of ignore this person. And this is really, really important, I think, for us as practicing devotees, because point here is that when we take too much attention, or when we pay too much attention to the form of things, to how things look on the outside, to how my devotional service looks like, or how I'm performing it, it can be detrimental, right? Of course, we want to do things nicely, we want to do things correctly, we want things to be done in a good way, right? But if we're totally focused on that, and in the heart there is bitterness or there's resentment, right? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do this service? Why do I have to like this, right? Then this is a kind of like a schism. That's the word I'm looking for, right? A schism in personality and identity, because on the outside, I might be looking like I'm performing devotional service, but internally, something else might be going on. And this is a very, very important lesson, actually, that I think that all of us go through, Okay, moving on from this point, the next point I wanted to make before I open it up for questions, well, less a point and more just I wanted to read something. That this last verse of the section is speaking about how after Putana fell and after her scary, crazy body is like this, that without fear, the child Krishna was playing on the upper portion of Putana Rakshasi's breast. And when the gopis saw the child's wonderful activities, they immediately came forward with great jubilation and picked him up. And so the point here is that we should not be afraid. That sometimes sometimes we might get lost in those superficial things. Like it will happen. It will happen. We will get lost in the superficial things. We will get lost in Maya. And a lot of the times it can get very challenging. It can get very taxing. It can get very scary. And so the lesson here is to understand that this is the nature of the material world. Understand that this won't be the last kind of attack of Maya that comes, that they will keep coming, actually. So I was reading this, I found a letter from Srila Prabhupada to one of his disciples. And I give a preamble to this, that this is not about any of the current events going on. This is simply a letter from Srila Prabhupada to his disciple. So he says, I am sorry to learn that you are also attacked with the flu, fever, as most of the boys in the country are also attacked this past winter. So this attack of Maya's agent is not very uncommon. When Krishna himself was present, he was being attacked by Maya's agent almost every day during his childhood. When he was just born, within 3 months, he was attacked by Putana. When he was a little grown, then he was attacked by Shakatasura, then by Trinavarta, then Agasura, Makasura, then Kaliya, then Godavasura, and so on. So Maya's agents do not let go even of Krishna. Then what to speak of Krishna's devotee? They will act in their own way, but as Krishna miraculously saved himself from the hands of all these demons, similarly, he will always save his devotees. He has declared in the Gita, my dear son of Kunti, just declare it to the whole world that my devotees will never be vanquished. Therefore, your only business is how to become a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. So it's a beautiful reminder from Srila Prabhupada that actually these attacks are going to continue, you know. Has anyone ever felt that like they got through something, like something dark in their life, or like something, right? And you have this feeling of like, now I can rest. Now I got through it. And then like 5 days later, it's like, the next thing comes, right? And then you get through that thing and you're like, okay, I can finally be at peace now. I'm gonna read my book and just, right? This is the nature of the material world, actually. And if we are not understanding this point, that this is the nature of the material world, then we're just going to be miserable, right? Because we're going to be always asking the same question of like, well, why can't it happen like this? Or why didn't it go my way? Or why doesn't it resolve like this, right? But what's being told to us here in this last verse is that if we take shelter of Krishna, if we actually listen to Krishna's instruction in Gita, right? That to surrender unto him, right? Sarva dharma parityaja, mamekam sharanam vraja, right? We're just surrendering, we're abandoning all other types of religion, of ritualistic practice, and we're surrendering ourselves. And that surrender means really establishing a relationship with Krishna. And so the deeper that relationship goes, the less afraid I will be, the less intense the onslaughts of Maya's attacks will feel. Because, and I'll end here and I'll open it up for questions. We have a nice amount of time. The attacks will continue. And we have to remember that Krishna has a plan, actually. And I'll mention this last point. I was going to mention it and I forgot that I was reading in Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. And he's mentioning that after Putana, to bring it back to Putana, after Putana kind of is running wild and she's screaming, get off me, child, get off me. And she's taken her original form, that somehow or another, actually it's saying by Krishna's Leela Shakti, Putana runs towards Kamsa's gardens where his favorite fruit trees grow. This is from Jiva Goswami. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is saying that this is Jiva Goswami mentioning this. And that 12 miles of Kamsa's favorite trees where he would go out and pick the fruit and eat them every day, they were just crushed because this is where Putana fell. And so it seems like an insignificant point, but it's also not, because Krishna has a plan, right? And Krishna's plan was that, and it was also saying that as Putana was running, like none of the houses of the gopis and the gopas were destroyed, right? So they were all protected. But Kamsa's garden was completely destroyed and all 12 miles of trees were just crushed. So we have to trust that Krishna has a plan, that Krishna will send the demons back to where they came from, and that we simply have to take shelter and continuously turn away from Maya and turn towards Krishna, right? This is the essential problem of the conditioned soul, that we're turning away from Krishna. And I can't remember this verse. Let me see if I have it pulled up somewhere. I think it's right here. Yes, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 31. I'll just read Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hoya Andakara, Yahan Krishna Taha Nahi Mayara Adikara. Krishna is compared to sunshine, and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion, the influence of the external energy will immediately vanish. Jai Haribol. Okie dokie. I will open it up to questions as such. Thank you all so much. Haribol. Wait, I think we're doing this. Wait, is this even working?
The best thing is to turn.
What's the best thing to do?
Oh, here. Right, let her speak there. No.
Okay.
It's a short question.
Okay, I'll repeat it.
Kishor, can you repeat the question? We may not be able to hear.
Krishna has a plan, and
Oh,
not
okay.
sure, but also Prabhupada saying that the biggest mistake in his disciples is not being afraid enough of Maya. So how to be afraid properly, and how to be brave and faithful properly.
So Emily's question is how to be afraid enough properly of Maya, and how to not be afraid, right? How to be faithful in Krishna and in Krishna's plan. So how to kind of find the balance between this. I think there's a lot of different ways to respond to that question. I think one, it's a very personal journey, right? Like you have to figure out what is your Maya, right? Different things might be different. There will be different strategic attacks for different people, if that makes sense, right? And so to really pinpoint that and know that, I think it's also not that we're like afraid at every moment, right? But we do have to remember that I think it's not necessarily a thing of like being in like absolute fear, but just having that awareness that the attacks are going to come and that we don't belong here, right? There's this verse, Yasya Padam, what does it go? Padam Padam Vipadam Natesham, right? That at every step in the material world, there's danger. And that this is not the goal. The goal is not to be in this material world, but actually the goal is Vaikuntha, right? Where the goal is to go away from this place. And so I wouldn't say that, if you understand this point superficially, then you will be paranoid. I was listening to a lecture and Radhanath Maharaj was speaking about how we have to take shelter of Bhagavatam. We have to take shelter of the stories in Bhagavatam of the Sangha of devotees. He was speaking specifically about Narasimhadev and Hiranyakashipu. And he was speaking about how there was a moment during the fight between Narasimhadev and Hiranyakashipu where it seems like Hiranyakashipu is winning, right? Like Narasimhadev like lets him believe that he's winning. And Hiranyakashipu starts to feel like, yes, I am winning. And this is just the Lord toying with Hiranyakashipu. And so in a sense, there needs to be a little bit, not a little bit, a lot of surrender in understanding that, we hear Srila Prabhupada's prayers on the Jaladuta, Krishna, please make me your puppet. Make me dance like your puppet. So there's an understanding that if I am going through suffering, if I am going through an attack from Maya, if some reversal is happening in my life, there has to be a deep enough relationship to understand that this is part of the plan. And that is difficult. It's hard, but we must take shelter of Bhagavatam and of the devotees and of speaking to mentors and stuff like this, because I don't think it should be like, does anyone remember in New York, like a few years ago, I can't remember how many years ago, maybe like 5 years ago, where there was like a spree of some crazy guy, or I think it was like a lot of crazy people who were pushing people off the subway platforms. It's still happening, but I think this was like intense. Like it was happening like 3 times a week. Does anyone remember this? Asha remembers. When that happened, I got so paranoid. I would walk to the subway and just like stand at the wall like this. Like I would just be like, or if I realized that I wasn't doing that and I was doing my normal thing of just standing at the edge of the subway and I caught myself doing that, like I would just have a gasp. And this still happens actually when I find myself. And so I think it's a balance, right? I don't think we should be walking like paranoid, stuck on the wall. And I also don't think that we should just be completely carefree, right? We have to do our part. So there's a knowledge that yes, Krishna is protecting us and he protects his devotee. But at the same time, I am doing my part, right? I am doing my part to protect myself, to not be completely, whimsical. On edge, yeah, literally. Andrea is saying, I always stood against the wall on the subway. Yes, me too. Any other questions? Yes, Evan.
Just my understanding of fearing Maya is understanding the danger. So you're steering clear and it gives you impetus to take shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh yeah. Let me repeat that. So Evan was saying that his understanding of fearing Maya is really understanding the danger that comes along with it. And so it's not like a paranoid thing of just like being in constant fear, but just really understanding like the repercussions and the danger that comes along with it, and therefore doing our best to stray clear from that. Good. Any other questions before I go to the Zoomers? Yes, Susanna.
Another question.
Or comments, yes.
Very appreciative that you brought up that detail of getting up falling on the blizzard and not touching any of the houses, because like I have this understanding and this acceptance of, yeah, Krishna's making everything happen and like Krishna's there and like everything's working out, but then details like that, it's like, oh, I can see Krishna, like his sense of humor and his attention to detail and like paying attention. And so just I appreciate having these details. And it's like, oh yeah, it's not just that like, everything's like happening. It's very deliberate.
Yeah. Thank you, Susanna. So Susanna was saying that she was appreciating the detail about when Putana took her original form and was dying essentially and running all over the place, that she didn't actually crush any of the gopis or the gopas houses, and that she ended up falling in the orchard of Kamsa's favorite fruit trees. And so she was saying that like it gives a lot more detail to who Krishna is and his humor and how he maneuvers things, as opposed to perhaps this like vague understanding of just like, yeah, Krishna's protecting me. Yeah, Krishna's making everything happen. It's like there's a lot of details there. Another interesting detail, I was listening to various lectures about this, is that in a few verses before this, when Putana walks in, it says that baby Krishna pretends to be afraid and he closes his eyes. And I was hearing in a lecture that actually Krishna knew exactly who Putana was, and that actually he already knew everything that was going to happen. And the reason he closed his eyes was because his glance, just Krishna's glance, bestows the utmost of blessings. It sanctifies someone. So knowing this, he was like, I'm not going to sanctify you just yet, right? I'm going to close my eyes, and then I'm going to kill you. And then that'll happen, right? And so I do agree with you that those details are really sweet, because when we talk about a relationship with Krishna or deepening our relationship with Krishna, sometimes we say that, but we don't actually say what that means. Just like your relationship with Krishna. Okay, well, what's that look like? And so I really appreciate Susanna's point, because it's like those details from the Leela really start to give us insight into how Krishna is and who Krishna is and his humor and his, all his all-knowingness. And at the same time, he's performing this Leela, and it's kind of just like fun. Yeah, it's fun. It's like, it gives you less of that, like, I have to be afraid of Maya, and more of like, I trust Krishna. He dropped Putana on Kamsa's orchard, so I trust Krishna. Thank you so much, Susanna. Okay. Any questions, any comments? Jai Jagannath Prabhu? Evan?
Just really quickly, I was thinking of how, let's say something goes really wrong in your life, something is destroyed. You have like a tower moment or a death moment in tarot cards. So something just goes crashing down in your life, but then with it, some other like anartha or something that's really blocking your path also comes with it. That's just what makes me think of, Putana's going down, and then also the is going down.
It was a comment, right? Not a question. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this was very nice. Evan is saying that when there are giant reversals in your life, he mentioned a card from the tarot called the Tower. I know what that means. But basically just, a big reversal in your life, that there will also be the obliteration of anarthas as well. And we see this in Putana's story of, this it seems like a reversal, like, oh my God, this demon is coming to kill us and destroy all the Brajvasis and etc. But actually there's also something else is coming down with it. And so there's almost like a path that is cleared as well. That's a very beautiful point, actually. Has anyone felt this before? Yeah, when there's a reversal in life and then you go through the reversal and it's almost like something blooms out of that, right? Something auspicious almost comes out of that. Okay, so unfortunately, I don't think we have time for Zoom questions, because I think the altar is about to open, but maybe we have time for one. Let's see. Oh wait, was there a question? Okay, oh please.
I'll try to. But what you were saying about this challenges, and then aliveness also falling. What you were saying about the fear, how to fear properly. What you also were saying about that genuine feeling, rather than somebody saying this genuine feeling in your heart. I thought one way to be afraid, but not afraid and scared all the time, it's just not to feel entitled, to feel that gratitude that Krishna has so much detail, there's so much about how he cares. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose this super colorful life that we're given. And that genuinely thing that we have in our hearts, it's not just that life that we're so connected to Krishna, but the challenges we share, we can connect with that in others, and then let go of differences. So things are just passing, they're just superficial trends and things that I choose and you don't, and this and that. That's all gonna pass. But we can connect with something more genuine. The challenges we have from the material world and the life that is just the way the soul.
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful point. We don't have time to repeat it. Thank you all so much. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. The curtains are Haribol. Hare Krishna.
All right, he cut us out. But thank you very much, dear devotees. We hope you like the class. Jamuna Jaya, what's going on? You're turning your camera on so we can see a smile. Jamuna Jaya, all right. Okay. Yes, Jamuna Jaya, thank you very much. Dear devotees, we love you dearly. We want to see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.